Good morning.
Good morning.
Pray with me. Gracious and good Father, for another day in your kingdom, we're eternally grateful. We're thankful for the opportunities that you give us. Let us do things that please you. Forgive us when we don't. Keep us in your mercy. Let us pray to you all the time. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Chairman to the front, Mr. Yates.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Today I have House Bill 166. In case you're wondering to me, a 94-year-old guy, no, I don't ride motorcycles. But I try to help those in need, and these motorcycle folks couldn't seem to get anybody to take this up and explain it, so I said I would. The main part is that it's on the bill extends the height of motorcycle handlebars to 25 inches. Motorcycle that are sold and ridden in Georgia, many of these are illegal because they are greater than 15 inches, which is the current law. This will bring a majority of those being sold and driven in compliance with the law. And that's what it does is one. The other part there was put on, I believe, by Representative Powell. Any motorcycle carrying a passenger other than and in a sidecar or enclosed cab shall be equipped with foot rest for such passengers. I don't know why that's necessary. I thought that would be understood, but anyway, that was put in for that purpose. My part is Part B of the bill.
Mr. Yates, the reason they ask you to carry it, they know I have a hard time saying no to you, right? The fact is, I don't think I do. But y'all, that's Easy Rider handlebars is what that is. That's what that is. Any questions for Mr. Yates? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Coomer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm asking on the second page under Modified Structured Rule, House Bill 927, Appellate Jurisdiction Reform Act, which makes changes to the appellate jurisdiction of the courts in accordance with the Appellate Jurisdiction Study Commission recommendations and adds 2 members to the Supreme Court. And also changes the terms of court.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I have 2 under Modified Structured Rule. First one is House Bill 903. And this bill, supported by the Department of Labor, allows the Department of Labor to work with the Department of Revenue to verify income information, also number of employees, in order to address fraud and misclassification with unemployment trust fund.
Any questions on 903? No question. Do 904.
And 904, the next one listed there. This addresses a sunset on the new employer contributions to unemployment trust fund. It also decreases the percentage that goes to administrative assessment in order to increase the amount that goes to the actual trust fund itself without changing the overall percentage that we're requiring for new employers. Also supported by the Department of Labor.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning. I bring before you today House Bill 847. It's in Modified Structure Rule on back of the page 11 from the bottom. And it's moving welfare fraud into Title 16 where it should have been all along, and it's just a cleanup bill, and the prosecuting attorney council has asked me to carry this bill. and which hopefully will deter fraudsters from committing it if they see it on the list of crimes, which in the end will help the truly needy.
You want to tell them why you want this bill on tomorrow, or you want me to?
You can do it, Chairman.
You have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here this morning to ask for, it's on the second page, third from the top, HB 783, which is my perennial annual drug update bill, which brings new medications that have been approved by the FDA into the code so they can be regulated, and also the addition of some additional synthetics, which we continue to see a problem in this state. The synthetic bath salts and marijuanas, we continue to see a problem in this state, and those are brought to us by the GBI Crime Lab. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kendrick.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm here to request HB 6, which is a HOPE-related bill, and this would allow the Georgia Student Finance Commission to award over a 4.0 towards HOPE and HOPE Scholarship for high school students in STEM advanced level classes.
No questions. Thank you. Mr. Holcomb. Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you this morning House Bill 827, which is under modified structure rule on the back side of the page, fifth one down. The purpose of this bill is to ensure the timely processing of rape kits. It is supported by law enforcement, victims' rights advocates, as well as healthcare providers, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
No questions. Thank you. Mr. Pizzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is House Bill 93, first page at the very bottom. Deals with data obtained using automated license plate readers. There is a friendly amendment on your desk sponsored by Chairman Powell. It simply moves the date range from 90 days up to 1 year. And I'd appreciate your favorable consideration.
Anybody got a question? I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead right now, but the amendment, you should have it, and again, it's just what it says. It moves it from 90 days to 12 months. Do I hear a motion on that? Have a anybody opposed to that amendment? All right, it'll be on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
When your bill gets on the floor.
Understood. Yes, sir.
We'll just do the amendment and not worry about the bill. Mr. Dudgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring to you House Bill 777, the middle of modified open on page 1. It's a very small bill. It simply says that school systems can use cell phones as their two-way radio back to base as long as the software is locked down so that it's used just like a regular push-to-talk radio system.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Today I bring to you House Bill 542, which is on the first page under modified open rule. What this does is enhance Georgia's 529 plan. Currently, Georgia has a great 529 plan, but unfortunately, the majority of the folks that take advantage of it make over $100,000 a year. Half make, according to the numbers that I have, make over $150,000 a year. So what this does is create a partnership for providing a matching fund, which 10 states do, to those that are low to moderate income families. If you make below $30,000, it would be a 2-to-1 match up to $500. If you make between $30,000 and $60,000, it would be a 1-to-1 match up to $500. If you don't go to college, money goes back to the state. It's based on appropriations from the General Assembly or gifts, and I just ask for your favorable consideration.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Wait. But y'all, that's a senator. Mr. Stone, have at us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad to be here amongst friends. Bring to your consideration SB 255, which is under structured rule on page 2. What this bill does is brings Georgia's garnishment statute into constitutional compliance. This is the result of a task force that was spearheaded by Chairman Willard. I was honored to work with Chairman Willard on this, and it modernizes the code, which has not been reviewed in over 50 years. It is supported by our Georgia Chamber of Commerce. And with that, I'll be happy to answer questions.
Mr. Weldon. Mr. Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. I'm right here. Now, this bill, it not only addresses a federal district court case which gave an opinion that our garnishment procedures were in violation of the Constitution.
That's correct.
Correct. And I appreciate the work's been done on this. There's two issues that I need to address here. One is the requirement. It's a 24-hour requirement for a garnishment that it's. I think that's line 98 and 99 on page 4. If somebody goes and files a garnishment after they've gone through all the process and litigation to obtain a judgment, then this person that they've got a judgment against has a bank account. They file a garnishment on that bank account, and that garnishment only lasts for 24 hours, correct?
The garnishment period on a financial account is 24 hours.
Now, that's a substantial change from the previous policy of the state of Georgia, which was it lasted for 30 days. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
It brings Georgia into more of the norm for the Southeast, and it also was necessary to shorten the period to determine any claims in a garnishment case, and that was one of the grand
of the garnishment, doesn't it? It goes from 30 days down to 24 hours.
On a financial account.
On a financial account, that's right.
That's correct, okay. Not for others.
And also, the way the practice is, as I understand it, has been in Georgia, this bill would change the policy of when funds go into a bank account, that then they become fungible at that time, which means that if they're in a bank account and they're commingled with other funds, then they can be garnished. Is that accurate?
Well, the Strickland decision dealt with that exact situation with regard to workers' comp benefits in a checking account. Mm-hmm. And this is the position, as we heard testimony on from judges, that Georgia courts have evolved at the trial level in recent years.
Okay. So, but Georgia law before this bill, or Georgia law presently, doesn't say that they can't assert those exemptions, correct?
Georgia law is silent in the statute as to this point.
And that doesn't preclude a person from asserting those
Wrong.
There was no specific determination in the federal decision. What we were doing was taking into account the input from all the stakeholders, including garnishees who have to deal with these garnishments.
And I appreciate that, Senator. And I know you worked real hard on this, and so did the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. In those two areas that Chairman Weldon expressed are my only two concerns about the bill, but I thank you for coming.
Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brockway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, talking about House Bill 676 under open rule, the very second bill on your list there. The guts of the bill begin on line 29. What we're doing is requiring state agencies, boards, authorities, commissions of the executive branch to develop a plan. When they want to purchase technology that costs over $1 million, they need to develop a plan that describes why they need it, what this is going to do, what their plan to properly implement this is, how it's going to be successful in improving their operations. Submit that plan 30 days before they make a budget request to the Georgia Technology Authority, and they will provide oversight, well, not oversight, excuse me, but advice and counsel on that proposal, so that when the agency comes to OPB, they've got a firm plan and a high level of high chance of success that when we purchase this technology, it's going to be implemented properly and do the things we want it to do. So that's the bill, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer any questions on it.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mabry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you House Bill 804, modified open rule on the first page, middle of the page. All this bill does is add a 5th Superior Court judge to the Clayton County Judicial Circuit. That is it, and I will answer any questions.
Ms. Ballinger.
Thank you. Isn't it true, Representative, that I serve on Public Safety Appropriation, and we actually appropriated money to fund this position? Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Ms. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you today House Bill 826. It's under modified open rule, page 1, opposite the third hole punch. This bill provides for certain requirements for advertisement or publication of representation of board certifications by physicians and to provide for disciplinary action. It basically makes it so physicians can't hold themselves out to be board certified unless they have board certification coming from 2 entities. It's a self-policing bill of the profession and does not affect the licensure of any physician. It's basically truth in advertising and consumer protection.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Earhart.
Bill 745. I'd like to also ask that this be modified structured. You'll notice that the regents, they took a huge step forward in their announcement that there will be no tuition increases next year. All the presidents have been informed of that. I think the taxpayers Georgia will be significantly served by that. This is the carry forward legislation that we do every 3 years. This is actually going to go out for 5 years. I'm tired of carrying it. It's my 3rd time. It's a good piece of legislation. Basically, it says it's good accounting, it's good budgeting procedures. As you know, sometimes there's the if you don't spend it, you'll lose it concept in government budgeting. This allows a small amount to be carried forward, and it affects the allocation of next year, so it's accounted for. It is just a solid way to account for our state funds, and it gives the flexibility to the TCSG and to the Board of Regents, our 2 departments, too.
Any questions? Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to place my name by House Bill 876 and House Bill 777. Good casino bill. Number.
Ms. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for House Bill 886. This would allow Georgia pharmacists and pharmacies to work under the same rules that manufacturers and wholesalers do when it comes to shipping medications to Georgia citizens. Thank you.
Mr. Dixon.
Put my name, please, beside House Bill 6.
Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside House Bill 93 and House Bill 676 because Mr. Brockway's been such a gentleman.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name by House Bill 879 and also 927.
Well, okay. Mr. Setzler.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask once again for HB 845, good common sense bill to help people who are reporting crimes.
The minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside HB 497, the state surplus property bill, and HB 804, the fifth judge on the Clayton Judicial Circuit.
Ms. Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside HB 542 to encourage savings, and also House Bill 856, our probate judge is interested in that.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Smith.
I move that we move House Bill 838 back to Insurance Committee.
Do I hear a second? Any opposed? It's back. Okay, Mr. Willard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two things I'd like to address to our committee, if I might. First of all will be the Senate Bill 255 and some questions raised regarding provisions in there. Let me go back and tell the committee that we had meetings that lasted from September, into September, till December 17th, every Thursday, with an advisory group that we put together representing each of the interests of the areas of garnishment law. We had creditor rights lawyers, we had debtors lawyers, we had banks lawyers, we had attorney general lawyers, we had a number of them. And all this was very in-depth discussed policy-wise. And the only group that you have that concerns what we brought before you now is the creditors lawyers, the lawyers who have ice water in their veins anyway. And the point is, we've got a good bill. We've got a bill that is really one to be addressed to clean up a lot of the problems we have addressed by the Strickland decision by Judge Shoup. And everyone, as I say, other groups have found great support for the work that was done, and I would ask the committee to recognize this is a great improvement over what we have currently in the law. The second thing I have, Mr. Chairman, is a House resolution. I'd ask permission of the chair to allow me to go to the podium and address the committee on this particular resolution.
Which one of these resolutions?
This is House Resolution 1363, which was put on the desk this morning.
We have to go into regular meeting, regular rules, but do you want to address House Resolution 1113?
Well, I think what we're going to do, Mr. Chairman, where the House Resolution 1363 is setting up, if it passed and approved by the House and certainly passed out by this committee, a special committee to set up to investigate some of the allegations and the concerns about the conduct of the Judicial Qualification Commission. I would suggest that probably the best procedure would be to have that committee expeditiously do its work and then report back to the House their findings, recognizing is there or is there not purpose and need for the other resolution and the bill to go forward.
Okay. Well, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside HB 6 and also HB 126. Representative Teasley had a rough committee day yesterday. It was a trouble weight, stayed him alive. Trouble weights, he was carrying it, boy. Yeah.
All right, what we're going to do, y'all know that we've been assigned a couple of bills to this committee. We're going to hear what's on your desk. We're in this is not regular rules. We're in as a standing committee. Mr. Willard will take the podium and discuss 1363, House Resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have before you a extraordinary measure as a resolution, and it's taken extraordinary steps that I can say, as at least in my time serving in the House, I've never seen one of these, but I'm going to explain the purpose of it. This is to have our body, the Georgia House, set up a study committee, as we refer to it, to really do an investigation of the Judicial Qualification Commission. I don't bring this to you lightly. I've had a lot of concerns raised through items I've read in the newspaper over the last number of months, and I can tell you that people have come to me and talked about actions being done by this particular body. The body of the JQC is set up as a constitutional created body, but there's nothing as far as any oversight of that body. And frankly, from the time it was set up back in the 70s until recently, there never was really a concern, you might say, of us, the members of the House or representatives of the people, about their conduct. But some things have happened in recent times, some egregious conduct, in my opinion. One of those things addresses a member of that body who is a lawyer who has gone to court on occasion. I know of one occasion for sure confirmed, another one I'm still looking into, and because he was not able to get his way, made threats to the court personnel that if they didn't do what he wanted to, he was going to bring about an investigation of that court. And he did. He did one of them. Mr. Comer, where are you, Mr. Comer? Are you here? Christian Comer's probate judge up in Bartow County had this done to him. Now, this commission does great work. It has done tremendous things in cleaning up some improper conduct of judges and removing judges that were not performing within the boundaries of good conduct as well as the law. And those judges need to be removed. The problem is when you have a commission without any oversight and this type of thing is occurring, something needs to be done. The second thing that's happened is they have had 2 judges removed as a part of their conduct when the judges came and spoke to the commission. There's a provision in Georgia law under Title 16, it's 16, Chapter 10, Section 20, I believe it is, talks about someone giving testimony or statements to a government body, and if that information is considered to be unlawful, not unlawful, but untruthful, excuse me, then there can be indictments taken. Well, they've taken, through their actions, in a way, caused indictments to be taken against 2 judges, one of which is still pending in Fulton Superior Court. The other judge had already agreed she was stepping down and was called in to a meeting of the body commission, what I call a star chamber proceeding, because she was not given notice of what she was being brought in for, was not aware that there was a complaint even pending against her on an issue, and really treated, I think, egregiously. So these things are going on by a commission that has no oversight. And it's created as a commission by the people of this state, constitutionally created. But we are the people who represent the people of this state in this House. And I suggest it's a duty that we have under this set of circumstances I'm beginning to describe to you, to ask the House itself to have a special committee created by the Speaker and given the subpoena powers that would be approved only by the Speaker to subpoena people as well as records, to have a full, in-depth investigation of what is happening with this commission. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will be glad to take any questions.
Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to Chairman Willard, isn't it true that I know that you've worked very hard looking into these problems that do exist with the Judicial Qualifications Commission, and what I believe that you've communicated to the Rules Committee this morning is that this watchdog group has now got such problems that somebody needs to be watching them. And it is our role as a House of Representatives to fill that capacity and pass this resolution so we can try to address some of the significant problems with the entity that is supposed to oversee portions of our judicial branch.
That's correct.
Mr. Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Chairman Willard, I just want to be clear. The JQC, as a matter of law, does the JQC answer to any other entity, whether it be the legislature, the governor, or the judicial branch?
No, sir. What you have is there are 7 members on the JQC. The appointments of those 7 members are 3 are made by the State Bar of Georgia, which is, again, a unique situation. The State Bar of Georgia is the only outside governmental body that makes appointments to a governmental commission. Everybody else who serves on commissions and authorities of the state are usually appointed by other elected or appointed officials. So that's a little bit unique in that situation. Then you have 2 appointed by the governor and 2 by the Supreme Court. So the problem we had really is ones growing out of the state bar appointments, frankly, and that's where we're looking at this potential change in the constitutional provision establishing the commission, if it comes forward later. This is the House Resolution 1113. But right now, I think the purpose of this is to say, I want to bring forward for this House information to determine whether or not these extraordinary steps need to be taken.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wait just one second. Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, I haven't had a chance to read this resolution in its entirety.
Yes.
But are there any provisions in there for anyone other than lawyers to be on this study committee?
It's not stated for lawyers only, no, sir. So it's up to the Speaker in making the appointment. We put the number as 7, just to keep what I think is a reasonable sized body of persons for the committee.
And that was not a reflection on lawyers. It just seemed like it got pretty lawyered up.
Didn't take it from you. Thank you.
No more questions. Okay, as the committee, as the standing committee, we have, it is right now. Do I hear a second? All right. That's to pass it out of standing committee. He'll come back to rules tomorrow and ask for his bill. Everybody got that? All right. We'll set the calendar set the calendar for Thursday. Under open rule, HB 676. Anyone opposed? It's on. Under open rule, HB 876. Did I do 876 or 676 the first one? 676. Y'all confused me. I've had several. Anybody opposed to that going on? It's on. Under modified open. Whoa. Excuse me. We're going to move HB 745 from modified open to modified structure. So under modified structure, HB 745. Do I hear anybody opposed? It's on. Under modified open, HB 777. Any opposed? Under modified open, it's on. Under modified open, HB 826. Any opposed? It's on. Under modified open, HB 879. Any opposed? It's on. Under modified structure, HB 772. Any opposed? It's on. Modified structure, HB 783. Any opposed? Under modified structure, HB 927. Any opposed? And we have to put HB 847 on so Mr. Clark can perform for people he's got coming to town. So do I hear a move on H47? And it'd probably be appropriate that since he's got people, constituents here, that y'all can be mean to him if you want to. Hey, anybody opposed to that? It's on. How many is that? That's enough.